The pervasive influence of history on our present lives is often subtle yet profound. It's not merely a matter of remembering dates and names. Rather, it's the understanding that the past continues to shape our present realities in ways both visible and invisible. The social structures, belief systems, and cultural norms we inhabit are the legacies of countless historical events, decisions, and interactions. To truly grasp our current circumstances, we must delve into the historical context that molded them. Consider, for instance, the enduring impact of colonialism. The arbitrary drawing of borders, the exploitation of resources, and the systemic oppression of indigenous populations during the colonial era continue to reverberate through the political, economic, and social landscapes of many nations today. The inequalities in wealth distribution, the persistent power imbalances, and the ongoing struggles for self-determination in post-colonial societies are direct consequences of this historical legacy. Understanding this historical context is crucial to comprehending the complexities of contemporary global politics and the persistent challenges faced by many marginalized communities. The seemingly intractable conflicts in various regions of the world are often rooted in unresolved historical grievances and the lingering effects of past injustices. These historical wounds, often left unhealed, fester and contribute to ongoing instability and suffering. Similarly, the impact of major wars and global conflicts extends far beyond the immediate battlefield. World War II, for example, not only resulted in millions of deaths and widespread destruction, but also profoundly reshaped the global political order, leading to the rise of superpowers and the establishment of international organizations like the United Nations. The economic and social consequences of the war were felt for decades, influencing everything from technological advancements to demographic shifts and societal attitudes. The trauma experienced by individuals and communities during wartime continues to affect subsequent generations, manifesting in various ways, from intergenerational trauma to the persistent impact on national identities and foreign policy. The very fabric of societies is woven with the threads of these past traumas. The history of social movements also reveals the powerful interplay between past struggles and present realities. The civil rights movement in the United States, for instance, while achieving significant legislative victories, continues to shape contemporary discussions on racial justice and equality. The ongoing fight against systemic racism, the persistent inequalities in access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities all reflect the incomplete nature of historical progress and the need for continued activism and social change. The successes and failures of past movements serve as valuable lessons, informing strategies for future struggles and highlighting the enduring nature of social justice battles. Each generation inherits the legacy of these struggles, building upon past achievements while confronting new challenges. Moreover, historical context is essential for understanding the evolution of ideas and belief systems. The intellectual and philosophical currents of the past profoundly influence contemporary thought. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason and individual liberty, for example, continues to inform political discourse and social movements today. However, the limitations and unintended consequences of Enlightenment ideals, such as the exclusion of marginalized groups from its promises of equality and freedom, also need to be critically examined. This critical engagement with history allows for a more nuanced understanding of contemporary challenges and helps avoid the repetition of past mistakes. It demands a constant reassessment of the very foundations of our current social and political systems. Furthermore, the historical context of technological advancements profoundly shapes our present lives. The Industrial Revolution, for instance, while ushering in an era of unprecedented technological progress and economic growth, also resulted in significant social disruption, widespread inequality, and environmental degradation. The challenges of climate change, the persistent gap between the rich and the poor, and the ethical dilemmas surrounding technological innovation all reflect the complex legacy of this historical transformation. Understanding the historical context of technological development is crucial for navigating the ethical implications of emerging technologies and for fostering responsible innovation that benefits all of humanity. The very technologies we rely on today are products of centuries of invention and refinement, a continuous process driven by historical needs and circumstances. Beyond grand historical narratives, the influence of history extends to the personal level. Our individual experiences are inextricably linked to the historical context in which we live. Our family's histories, the social and cultural environments we grew up in, and the historical events that have shaped our communities all contribute to shaping our identities, beliefs, and perspectives. Our understanding of ourselves is deeply interwoven with our understanding of the historical currents that have shaped our lives and the lives of those who came before us. This personalized understanding offers a unique connection to broader historical trends and allows for a deeper appreciation of the complexity of human experience. This exploration of history's impact on the present isn't simply an academic exercise. It's a crucial tool for self-understanding, social critique, and informed action. By acknowledging the pervasive influence of history on our individual lives and collective realities, we are better equipped to navigate the complexities of the present, to challenge injustices, and to strive for a more just and equitable future. Recognizing the historical roots of our current challenges enables us to develop more effective strategies for addressing them, promoting a more informed and meaningful approach to social and political engagement. The ongoing dialogue between the past and the present is not static. It's a dynamic process requiring continuous reflection, critical analysis, and a commitment to learning from the past to shape a better future. A thoughtful engagement with history is not just about understanding the past, it's about creating a more conscious and responsible future. The process of understanding the impact of history requires not just the study of grand narratives, but also a deep appreciation for the lived experiences of individuals within specific historical contexts. Oral histories, personal narratives, and the analysis of primary sources offer invaluable insights into the realities of past lives and the ways in which those realities continue to affect the present. By engaging with these diverse voices and perspectives, we can develop a richer and more nuanced appreciation for the complexities of historical events and their lasting impact. The study of marginalized groups and their experiences within the broader historical narrative offers a critical counterpoint to dominant narratives, illuminating often overlooked aspects of the past and its enduring influence. This inclusive approach to historical analysis is vital for ensuring a more complete and accurate representation of the past, ultimately leading to a more informed and just understanding of the present. Furthermore, the study of history should not be confined to the distant past. Understanding the recent past, including the impact of technological advancements, globalization, and social movements, is equally crucial for comprehending the complexities of the present. Recent history provides a closer look at the forces shaping our current circumstances and helps us to identify patterns and trends that might otherwise be overlooked. This understanding allows for a more informed and responsible engagement with current events and challenges. In conclusion, understanding the impact of history on the present is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a fundamental aspect of navigating the complexities of our lives and striving for a better future. It demands a continuous process of inquiry, reflection, and critical engagement with the past, recognizing that history is not a fixed narrative but a dynamic interplay of forces that continues to shape our realities. This understanding enables informed action, fosters empathy, and enhances our ability to build a more just and equitable world, a world aware of its historical context and committed to learning from the past to shape a better tomorrow. The continuous conversation between past, present, and future is crucial not only for understanding ourselves, but for actively shaping the course of human history. Collective memory, unlike individual memory, is a shared understanding of the past held by a group of people. It's not a perfectly objective record. Rather, it's a constructed narrative, constantly shaped and reshaped by social, political, and cultural forces. This process of constructing collective memory involves selecting, emphasizing, and often suppressing certain events and interpretations, thereby creating a specific historical narrative that serves the needs and interests of the group. The way a society remembers its past profoundly impacts its present and future. National myths, for instance, are powerful examples of collective memory, often portraying a simplified and idealized version of a nation's history, emphasizing heroic figures and moments of triumph while downplaying or ignoring less flattering aspects. These narratives, while potentially unifying, can also serve to exclude or marginalize certain groups within society. The construction and dissemination of collective memory is rarely a neutral process. Governments, educational institutions, and media outlets all play crucial roles in shaping public understanding of the past. Monumentalization, for example, reflects conscious choices about which historical figures and events deserve to be commemorated, often reflecting prevailing social values and power dynamics. The very act of erecting a statue or naming a building after a particular historical figure serves to elevate that figure's importance and reinforce a particular interpretation of history. Conversely, the absence of memorials or the deliberate removal of monuments can signal a rejection of the past and a desire to reshape collective memory. The role of historical narratives in shaping societal identities and values cannot be overstated. These narratives provide a sense of shared identity and purpose, giving individuals a place within a larger historical context. They shape our understanding of who we are, where we come from, and where we are going as a society. However, the very selectivity inherent in these narratives can lead to biased and incomplete understandings of the past. Dominant narratives often privilege the perspectives of powerful groups, while marginalizing the experiences of others, perpetuating inequalities and shaping social. Consider, for instance, the contrasting historical narratives surrounding the American Civil War. The Lost Cause mythology, which romanticizes the Confederacy and downplays the role of slavery in the conflict, provides a stark contrast to the narrative that emphasizes the struggle for abolition and racial equality. These differing interpretations of the same historical events reflect the ongoing struggle over the meaning and significance of the past and its impact on present-day racial dynamics. The enduring debates over Confederate monuments, for example, highlight the ongoing tension between competing historical narratives and the struggle to construct a more inclusive and accurate understanding of American history. Similarly, the historical narratives surrounding colonization significantly impact post-colonial societies. Official accounts often downplay the brutality and exploitation inherent in colonial rule, focusing instead on the supposed benefits of civilization and progress brought by the colonizers. This sanitized version of history contrasts sharply with the lived experiences of indigenous populations, who often recount a history of dispossession, violence, and cultural destruction. These conflicting narratives highlight the power dynamics at play in the construction of historical memory and the importance of incorporating marginalized voices to create a more complete and accurate account of the past. The ongoing struggle for reconciliation and redress in post-colonial societies often involves a challenging reevaluation of historical narratives and a concerted effort to restore a sense of historical justice. Moreover, the impact of technology on collective memory is increasingly significant. The digital age has created new possibilities for the preservation, dissemination, and manipulation of historical information. The internet and social media platforms provide unprecedented access to historical resources, allowing individuals to engage with a wider range of perspectives and interpretations. However, the same technologies can also be used to spread misinformation and distort historical accounts, creating an environment where competing narratives clash and the line between fact and fiction becomes increasingly blurred. The proliferation of fake news and the manipulation of historical images and videos pose significant challenges to the integrity of collective memory and necessitate a critical approach to the consumption and dissemination of historical information. The role of education in shaping collective memory is paramount. Educational institutions play a crucial role in transmitting historical narratives to future generations. The curricula used in schools and universities, the textbooks adopted, and the methods of teaching employed all contribute to shaping how students understand the past. However, biases in educational materials can perpetuate skewed interpretations of history and limit students' understanding of diverse perspectives. A more inclusive and critical approach to history education is needed to ensure that students develop a nuanced understanding of the past, appreciating both the triumphs and the failures, the complexities and the contradictions that have shaped human societies. The goal is not to erase difficult aspects of the past, but to contextualize them within a more complete and accurate historical narrative. The constant interplay between collective memory and historical narratives raises fundamental questions about the nature of truth and objectivity in history. History is not simply a collection of facts, but a process of interpretation and meaning-making. The selection of facts, the emphasis placed on certain events, and the framing of narratives all shape our understanding of the past. The challenge lies in developing critical historical consciousness, recognizing the limitations and biases inherent in historical accounts, and engaging with diverse perspectives to construct a more complete and nuanced understanding of the past. This means not only acknowledging the dominant narratives, but also actively seeking out and amplifying marginalized voices, creating a more inclusive and equitable representation of history. Furthermore, understanding collective memory is crucial for navigating present-day social and political issues. The ways in which societies remember or forget their past significantly impacts their present-day political landscapes, social movements, and international relations. For example, unresolved historical grievances can fuel present-day conflicts and contribute to social instability. Addressing these grievances often necessitates a critical re-examination of collective memory and a concerted effort to create a more inclusive and restorative narrative. The process of reconciliation requires acknowledging past wrongs, engaging in dialogue across diverse perspectives, and fostering empathy and understanding. This understanding is not only vital for healing past wounds, but also essential for building a more just and peaceful future. In conclusion, the study of collective memory and historical narratives reveals the complex interplay between the past, present, and future. The way a society remembers its past profoundly shapes its identity, values, and political structures. Understanding the processes by which collective memory is constructed and disseminated is crucial for developing critical historical consciousness, fostering inclusive and equitable representations of the past, and addressing present-day social and political challenges. The goal is not to impose a single, definitive historical narrative, but to create an environment where diverse voices can be heard, where critical analysis is encouraged, and where a more complete and nuanced understanding of the past can contribute to a more just and equitable future. The ongoing conversation about the past is a dynamic and evolving process, requiring continuous reflection, critical engagement, and a commitment to creating a more inclusive and accurate understanding of human history. This understanding is essential not only for comprehending the present, but also for actively shaping a more just and equitable world. The preceding discussion established the profound influence of collective memory and historical narratives on shaping present-day realities. We now delve into a specific and particularly potent manifestation of this influence: historical trauma. Historical trauma is not merely the collective remembering of past suffering. It's the enduring psychological, social, and cultural impact of a group's cumulative exposure to traumatic events across generations. Unlike individual trauma, which is typically associated with a single, definable event, historical trauma encompasses the enduring effects of mass violence, oppression, genocide, slavery, colonization, and other widespread atrocities. These traumas are not simply relegated to the past. They reverberate through time, affecting the mental health, social structures, and cultural practices of subsequent generations. The transmission of trauma across generations is a complex process, involving a multitude of factors. Direct transmission, where individuals experience firsthand the effects of a traumatic event, is only one aspect. More often, trauma is passed down indirectly through narratives, behaviors, and cultural practices. Parents who have experienced profound trauma may unconsciously transmit their anxieties, fears, and coping mechanisms to their children. This might manifest as hypervigilance, emotional detachment, or a heightened sense of vulnerability. Children may inherit not only the emotional scars of their parents, but also their coping strategies, some adaptive, others maladaptive. Consider, for instance, the long-lasting impact of residential schools on Indigenous communities in Canada and the United States. Generational trauma stemming from the forced separation of children from their families, the systematic suppression of their language and culture, and the widespread abuse inflicted within these institutions continues to affect Indigenous communities today. The intergenerational effects are evident in higher rates of mental health issues, substance abuse, and family dysfunction within these communities. This isn't merely a matter of individual experiences. It reflects a collective wound that has shaped social structures, cultural practices, and relationships within these communities. Similarly, the transatlantic slave trade and its aftermath have had a profound and enduring impact on African American communities. The legacy of slavery extends far beyond the formal abolition of the institution. The systemic racism, economic inequality, and social marginalization that persists to this day are inextricably linked to the historical trauma of slavery. The effects are deeply embedded in social structures and institutions, contributing to disparities in health, education, and economic opportunity. This historical trauma manifests not only in individual experiences of racism and discrimination, but also in the collective struggles for social justice and equality. The concept of epigenetic inheritance further illuminates the transmission of historical trauma. Epigenetics studies how environmental factors influence gene expression without altering the underlying DNA sequence. Exposure to chronic stress, a common consequence of historical trauma, can lead to epigenetic changes that affect future generations. These changes may manifest as altered hormonal responses, increased susceptibility to certain diseases, or changes in brain development. In essence, the experiences of previous generations can leave a biological imprint on subsequent generations, influencing their physical and psychological well-being. Beyond the biological mechanisms, cultural transmission plays a significant role in perpetuating historical trauma. Stories, songs, rituals, and other forms of cultural expression can act as repositories of collective memory, transmitting experiences of trauma and shaping subsequent generations' understanding of their history and identity. These cultural narratives may function to both preserve collective memory and maintain a sense of shared identity in the face of adversity, but also inadvertently contribute to the perpetuation of trauma by reinforcing negative narratives and limiting opportunities for healing. For instance, certain cultural narratives might emphasize helplessness, victimhood, or the inevitability of suffering, hindering individual and collective efforts toward resilience and empowerment. The impact of historical trauma extends beyond individual mental health. It significantly affects social and political structures. Communities grappling with historical trauma may experience higher rates of crime, violence, and social unrest. Distrust of authority, difficulty forming trusting relationships, and feelings of powerlessness can impede community development and social cohesion. Addressing historical trauma requires acknowledging the collective nature of the suffering, working to redress systemic inequalities, and fostering environments that support healing and reconciliation. Furthermore, historical trauma can create complex intergroup dynamics. Groups that have been victimized in the past may exhibit distrust and hostility toward groups perceived as responsible for their suffering. This can lead to cycles of conflict and violence, making reconciliation difficult to achieve. Addressing these dynamics requires open dialogue, empathy, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about the past. It requires fostering understanding across diverse perspectives and working towards creating a more inclusive and... The healing process from historical trauma is a multifaceted endeavor. It necessitates a holistic approach that addresses both individual and collective needs. Mental health services play a critical role in addressing the psychological consequences of trauma. However, individual therapies are not sufficient in isolation. They must be complemented by broader societal efforts aimed at addressing systemic inequalities, promoting social justice, and fostering cultural revitalization. Initiatives that promote cultural healing, restore a sense of identity, and empower communities can be instrumental in addressing the deep-seated wounds of the past. This process of healing and reconciliation often involves critical reflection on historical narratives. It necessitates a thorough examination of dominant narratives that minimize or distort the experiences of victimized groups. It also involves the active amplification of marginalized voices and the creation of more inclusive and accurate historical accounts. This does not necessarily mean erasing or denying difficult aspects of the past. Rather, it means contextualizing them within a broader and more nuanced understanding of history, one that acknowledges both the suffering and the resilience of communities that have endured immense hardship. Truth and reconciliation commissions are often established to facilitate this process, offering a platform for victims to share their stories and for society to engage with the difficult truths of its past. In conclusion, historical trauma represents a profound challenge that demands careful attention from various disciplines. The understanding and addressing of historical trauma necessitates a collaborative approach involving psychologists, sociologists, historians, and community leaders. It requires a commitment to understanding the complex mechanisms by which trauma is transmitted across generations, to addressing systemic inequalities, and to supporting initiatives that promote healing and reconciliation. This process of acknowledging, understanding, and working through historical trauma is not simply an act of historical restitution. It is fundamental to building a more just, equitable, and peaceful future for all. The legacy of the past should not be a burden that continues to weigh down future generations, but rather a catalyst for creating a more resilient and compassionate society. The continuous dialogue on historical trauma, its intergenerational impact, and the pathways towards healing is a crucial endeavor that deserves ongoing reflection and commitment from individuals and societies alike. The exploration of historical trauma underscores a crucial point. The past is not simply a prologue, it is an active participant in the present. Understanding this dynamic is paramount to effectively addressing a vast array of contemporary social issues. While we've examined the insidious ways in which historical trauma manifests, impacting mental health, social structures, and cultural practices, we must now consider how these historical insights can be leveraged to foster positive change. Ignoring the historical context of present-day problems is akin to treating a symptom without addressing the underlying disease. It is a superficial approach that ultimately fails to achieve lasting solutions. One powerful application of historical awareness lies in understanding persistent inequalities. The stark disparities in wealth, health, and opportunity that plague many societies today are often rooted in historical injustices. The legacy of colonialism, for example, continues to shape economic and political structures in former colonies, often resulting in ongoing exploitation and marginalization. Understanding the historical context of these inequalities, the systems of oppression and exploitation established centuries ago, is crucial for developing effective interventions. Simply implementing policies without addressing the deep-seated historical roots of the problem risks treating symptoms rather than causes, leading to temporary improvements at best, and perpetuating the cycle of inequality at worst. Take, for instance, the ongoing struggle for racial justice in many countries. The persistence of systemic racism cannot be understood without acknowledging the historical context of slavery, Jim Crow laws, and other forms of racial oppression. These historical events created and perpetuated deep-seated inequalities that continue to impact education, housing, employment, and the criminal justice system. Effective strategies for addressing systemic racism must therefore incorporate a historical understanding of its roots. Recognizing the complex ways in which historical trauma has shaped contemporary social structures and individual experiences. Ignoring this historical context leads to superficial solutions that fail to address the core issues at play. Similarly, understanding the history of conflict is essential for building lasting peace. Many contemporary conflicts have their origins in past grievances and unresolved historical traumas. The seemingly intractable conflicts in the Middle East, for instance, are deeply rooted in historical events stretching back centuries. Ignoring these historical underpinnings will inevitably lead to ineffective peace-building efforts, as the underlying causes of conflict remain unaddressed. A genuine commitment to peace requires a deep understanding of the historical dynamics that fuel conflict, and a willingness to engage in honest and difficult conversations about the past. This necessitates a concerted effort to uncover and grapple with the often suppressed or ignored aspects of historical narratives, allowing for a more holistic and comprehensive understanding of contemporary conflicts. The application of historical insights extends beyond the realm of political and social issues. It is also crucial for shaping effective policies in areas such as public health and education. Understanding the historical context of health disparities, for example, is crucial for developing effective interventions aimed at improving health outcomes for marginalized communities. Similarly, understanding the historical development of education systems can help us identify and address systemic inequalities in educational opportunities. Without such historical awareness, policymaking risks perpetuating existing inequalities rather than mitigating them. The use of historical data, coupled with sociological and psychological analysis, is pivotal to crafting policies that are both effective and equitable. Furthermore, acknowledging historical injustices is crucial for promoting restorative justice. Restorative justice aims to repair the harm caused by crime and conflict, involving both victims and offenders in the process of reconciliation. However, effective restorative justice initiatives require an acknowledgement of the historical context of the harm caused. This often necessitates acknowledging past injustices, addressing systemic inequalities, and creating space for meaningful dialogue between affected communities. Without acknowledging the historical context, restorative justice efforts risk being superficial and failing to achieve their intended goals. Restorative justice initiatives must be mindful of the cumulative effect of historical trauma on affected communities and individuals. Moreover, understanding historical patterns can help us anticipate and mitigate future risks. By studying past pandemics, for instance, we can gain valuable insights into how to better prepare for and respond to future outbreaks. Similarly, by analyzing past economic crises, we can learn valuable lessons about how to prevent or mitigate the effects of future downturns. This requires a conscious effort to learn from past mistakes and failures, which in turn empowers us to make more informed decisions in the present and future. The application of historical analysis across diverse fields from public health to finance highlights its indispensable role in shaping proactive and effective responses. However, the process of applying historical insights is not without its challenges. Historical narratives are often complex and contested, and different groups may hold conflicting interpretations of the past. This necessitates engaging in thoughtful and respectful dialogue across different perspectives. It requires a willingness to acknowledge the limitations of our own understanding and to engage in critical self-reflection on our own biases and preconceptions. This necessitates a conscious effort to deconstruct dominant narratives, giving voice to marginalized perspectives and acknowledging the existence of multiple interpretations of historical events. Moreover, applying historical insights requires a careful consideration of context. What worked in one context might not be applicable in another. This necessitates a nuanced understanding of the specific historical, social, political, and cultural factors at play in any given situation. It is crucial to approach historical analysis with a deep understanding of the complexities of human behavior and social systems. This necessitates a capacity for critical thinking, a spirit of openness, and a willingness to refine our understanding as we learn more. In conclusion, the ability to apply historical insights to contemporary issues is not merely an academic exercise. It is a crucial skill for building a more just, equitable, and sustainable future. By understanding the profound influence of history on the present, we can develop more effective strategies for addressing a wide range of social problems, from persistent inequalities to global conflicts. It requires a commitment to critical thinking, respectful dialogue, and a nuanced understanding of the complexity of historical narratives. The integration of historical awareness into policymaking, conflict resolution, and community development is not simply desirable. It is essential for navigating the complexities of our increasingly interconnected world. The past, therefore, is not simply a sequence of events. It is a living force that shapes our present and profoundly influences our future. Engaging with this force thoughtfully and critically empowers us to shape a better future for all. The cyclical nature of history is a subject that has captivated thinkers for centuries. From the ancient Greeks to modern-day historians, the observation that history often repeats itself has prompted intense debate and analysis. While history never perfectly replicates itself, the specific contexts always differ. Identifiable patterns, recurring themes, and similar consequences emerge across different eras and cultures. Understanding these cyclical patterns is not about predicting the future with certainty, but rather about recognizing potential pitfalls and leveraging past experience to shape a more informed present and future. One key factor contributing to historical cycles is the persistence of human nature. Our inherent biases, desires, and flaws, the tendency towards greed, power struggles, the allure of simplistic solutions, and the comfort of the familiar often lead to the repetition of similar mistakes across different generations. The hubris of empires, the cyclical rise and fall of civilizations, the recurring patterns of economic booms and busts, and even the cyclical nature of political ideologies can be partly attributed to this enduring aspect of the human condition. The seemingly timeless nature of these patterns underscores the importance of self-awareness and critical reflection, both individually and... For instance, the repeated occurrences of economic crises, from the tulip mania of the 17th century to the 2008 global financial crisis, reveal a recurring pattern of speculative bubbles followed by devastating collapses. These crises are not simply the result of unforeseen circumstances. They often involve a combination of factors, including unsustainable growth fueled by speculation, inadequate regulatory frameworks, and a disregard for long-term consequences in the pursuit of short-term gains. The common thread across these events highlights the persistence of human susceptibility to irrational exuberance and the inherent instability of systems driven by unchecked greed. Learning from these patterns, understanding the underlying mechanisms, and developing more robust regulatory mechanisms and ethical guidelines is vital for preventing future crises. Similarly, the study of political history reveals recurring patterns of authoritarianism, revolution, and the struggle for power. The rise and fall of dictatorships, the cyclical nature of democratic backsliding, and the recurrence of violent conflicts often demonstrate the enduring tension between individual liberty and collective order. These patterns are not solely determined by individual leaders. They are frequently influenced by broader social, economic, and cultural factors. Understanding these underlying dynamics, analyzing the conditions that foster authoritarianism, the social and economic grievances that fuel revolutions, and the psychological factors that contribute to conflict is crucial for promoting stability and peaceful coexistence. The cyclical nature of conflict, in particular, presents a complex and sobering reality. While the specific causes and contexts of wars may vary widely, underlying themes of resource competition, ideological clashes, and unresolved grievances often emerge as contributing factors. The tendency for unresolved conflicts to fester, leading to later, potentially more devastating, outbreaks is a stark reminder of the need for effective conflict resolution strategies and a commitment to addressing underlying tensions. This highlights the necessity of international cooperation, diplomacy, and the promotion of empathy and understanding between different groups and nations. Furthermore, sociological studies demonstrate the cyclical repetition of social problems, such as poverty, inequality, and discrimination. These issues are not simply the result of individual choices or misfortunes. They are often rooted in systemic inequalities that perpetuate disadvantage across generations. The ongoing struggles for social justice, whether related to racial equality, gender equality, or economic justice, frequently reflect the persistent challenges in dismantling these deeply entrenched systems of oppression. Understanding the historical roots of these inequalities, the systems of exploitation and discrimination that have shaped contemporary social structure is paramount for developing effective interventions that aim to address the root causes rather than just the symptoms. However, recognizing the cyclical nature of history is not simply about identifying patterns of repetition. It's about understanding the underlying mechanisms that drive these cycles. This involves delving into the complexities of human behavior, social structures, and power dynamics. It requires a multifaceted approach that integrates insights from various disciplines, including history, psychology, sociology, and political science. For example, psychological research can illuminate the cognitive biases and emotional factors that contribute to decision-making in times of crisis, helping to explain why similar mistakes are made repeatedly. Similarly, sociological analysis can reveal the social structures and power dynamics that perpetuate inequalities and conflicts across time. The importance of historical awareness in mitigating the repetition of past mistakes cannot be overstated. By critically examining the past, we can identify patterns, understand underlying causes, and develop more effective strategies for preventing undesirable outcomes. This requires a commitment to rigorous historical analysis, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and a commitment to learning from the mistakes of the past. It is not enough to simply acknowledge that history repeats itself. We must actively work to break free from these cyclical patterns. Furthermore, understanding cyclical patterns should not lead to fatalism or a sense of inevitability. While recognizing the persistence of certain human tendencies and social structures is crucial, history is not predetermined. Human agency plays a significant role in shaping events, and conscious efforts can be made to disrupt negative cycles and promote positive change. This involves actively challenging ingrained biases, advocating for social justice, and fostering a culture of critical thinking and self-reflection. It also requires promoting empathy, understanding, and cooperation across different groups and nations. The recognition of cyclical patterns empowers us to become more proactive agents of change, rather than passive observers of historical repetition. In conclusion, the cyclical nature of history is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that encompasses a broad range of human experiences and social processes. While patterns of repetition can be observed across various historical periods and contexts, understanding these patterns is not simply about predicting the future. It's about using past experiences to inform the present and future. By carefully analyzing historical events, understanding the underlying mechanisms that drive these cycles, and actively working to break free from negative patterns, we can create a more just, equitable, and sustainable future. This involves a continuous process of learning, critical reflection, and a commitment to actively shaping the direction of history, rather than being passively shaped by it. The study of history is therefore not merely an academic exercise. It's a vital tool for navigating the complexities of human existence and striving towards a better future. The ability to learn from the past is not simply desirable, it is essential for our collective well-being and